Hello and welcome to the second series of Podcasts in Brief, brought to you by me, Glyn Jones, Product Manager at Hughes Europe. When I originally titled this podcast, it was going to be called What Have We Seen and Been Up To in the Networking Industry During 2024. Now that I've come to record it, I've shortened the title to just What Happened to 2024. For those of you listening to the podcast in the week it was released, we're in the last week of 2024. I'm sure you, like many other people, are asking, what happened to 2024? It can't be nearly the end already. It only seems like yesterday it was January. Or are statements like that just murmured by us folk who are slightly on the wrong side of being the older generation now? We say this every year. Where's the time gone? What happened to the last 12 months? Well, consider this. As I was sitting down gathering my thoughts as to what I was going to talk about in this podcast, it suddenly dawned on me that in a few days' time it will be 2025. Unless, of course, you're listening to this later, then it probably is already 2025, and that we're now a quarter of the way through the 21st century. Off the back of that thought, I will state the obvious. It only seems like yesterday that it was December 1999 and all everybody was talking about was the millennial bug. One thing is for sure though, and it doesn't matter whether we say the last week, the last month, the last year, even the last decade has flown by, we live in an ever-evolving world where time does not stop and waits for no one. In my lifetime, we've seen some major steps forward in the way we live and work, and I for one can't envisage that our children and their children will see such large leaps forward in technology and how we live our lives. Rather than taking big leaps forward, the way we do things will just evolve and improve, though whether everything we do is an improvement is up for debate. Certainly, this is the case in the networking industry. If you look at the last 30 years, let alone only just the last 12 months, everything we do is an evolution, and I guess an improvement on the original aim of networking two or more computers together to allow the sharing of information. What has changed is what we do with our networked world and how reliant we have become on being able to access data wherever we may be and whenever we need to, just to allow our daily lives to exist. How often in the last 12 months have you seen in the press that a retailer was unable to trade due to a problem with their IT systems, whether it be with the network, the back-end systems or the application? It only takes a small issue somewhere and things grind to a halt. Within our part of the IT ecosystem, the network, at least we have the ability to offer solutions that can mitigate failures, whether that is through redundancy in the hardware or multiple circuits utilising SD-WAN, optimizing the network so that there are always multiple paths between the user and the data, application, or whatever it may be, so that in the event of a failure within any part of the network, there is an alternative path around it. The thing to consider is, whilst there is a cost associated with all this resilience and redundancy, what is the impact to your business if your network goes down? Can your business still operate? And if it can, at what scale? If your customers are unable to purchase goods from you, there is an instant monetary loss to you whilst the network is down. What is the longer term impact though? How loyal are your customers? Their experience and impact with their day-to-day interactions with you. Do they stick with you after the problems have been resolved, or do they migrate to the other retailer who they used while they couldn't purchase from you? Two very recent cases come to mind. Just prior to Christmas, a major retailer suffered issues with their IT systems, which stopped people accessing their loyalty card and associated services. It also impacted home deliveries during the busiest time of the year when people were expecting their Christmas food. Whilst they managed to recover reasonably quickly, the impact had been felt by a number of their loyal customers. The question is how many of their customers impacted will try a competitor services next time. In the other case, a food service outlet was utilising 5G connectivity to service one of their stores, which just happens to be close to a major football ground. It was match day, and as all the supporters were leaving the ground, and were a little bit peckish, they headed to the restaurant to get something to eat. I was about to say, typically, what is the first thing people do when they leave a venue? But in reality, what was the first thing they all did as they left the grounds? They got on their phones to message, surf the web, and anything else they wanted to do, which meant that the local cellular services were saturated, impacting the ability for the store to take money. In this instance, they were having to use cellular services as their resilient connectivity as their primary service wasn't operational. But it's not just about resilience, it's how is that resilience structured. In hindsight, would something like a LEO satellite service be a better alternative or an additional option to the 5G they were using? In both cases, I'm not saying at the time they hadn't made the right choices, But let's consider this. Resilience, redundancy, single point of failure mitigation, backup systems are in reality an insurance policy against failure of your systems. It is about risk mitigation and understanding what is the cost to your business in the event of failure. In networking, we have different ways to mitigate risk. While the likes of SD-WAN weren't new in 2024 by any means, with connectivity solutions such as low Earth orbit satellites and 5G starting to mature, the offerings to help mitigate the risk are becoming wider. The other area that's been getting even more focus this year is cybersecurity and how do we protect our assets. The need for network security is nothing new, but is ever evolving as the world landscape changes around us. Whether it's due to how we work with the mass migration from the office environment to working anywhere since the pandemic, though for some that trend is reverting back, to the challenges of international cybercrime, whether it's for monetary gain or political gains. The technology we use has to at least keep up, if not keep a number of paces ahead of the criminals. Secure Access Service Edge, SASE, is a combination of Secure Service Edge, SSE, and Software Defined Wide Area Networking, SD-WAN. I do think we have too many acronyms in networking sometimes, but suffice to say, it's all about the cybersecurity framework that brings together the connectivity requirements of your business and the current zero trust environment that we live in. SASE provides a converged, cloud-delivered platform that securely connects users, systems, endpoints and remote networks to apps and resources. During 2024, we started to see SASE begin to mature, though there are still many SASE vendors and various models on the market. So, implementing a SASE solution tailored to your enterprise's uniqueness requires time and expertise. One thing is for sure, as I said at the beginning, we've reached the end of 2024. It's been an interesting year, which once again has gone in a flash. Rather than dwelling on what happened in 2024 though, let's look forward to 2025 and what might be. The next podcast, What Can We Expect for 2025, will be out soon. Do subscribe or follow me on your podcast platform of choice to be notified when it comes out. Thank you for listening and do enjoy the rest of your day, and Happy New Year.